Policy Committee, this meeting is now called to order. For those around the table, please turn on your microphone when speaking. For those, please state your name when making a comment or asking a question. The MAG public comment process allows members of the public to comment on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction. If you would like to comment at today's meeting, please complete the request to speak form. MAG staff can assist with any questions you may have. If you parked in the garage, parking validators are available on the information table in the hallway. If you purchased a transit ticket to come to the meeting, please see staff for a ticket. Hearing assisted devices are available from MAG staff. We will now begin the meeting with a roll call of all members.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I will go down the list of members alphabetically. Please unmute and indicate if you are present. David Berry. Member Butler. Jen Daniels.
Here.
Thank you. Doug DeClusen.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Edwards. Mayor Gallego. Mayor Giles.
Here.
Thank you. John Graham.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Hall.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Littlefield.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Manfredi.
Here.
Thank you. Roy Miller. Chair Osborne.
Present.
Thank you. Tyler Pace. Mayor Peterson.
Here.
Thank you. Mark Reardon. Supervisor Sellers.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Stewart. Councilmember Stipp.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Wires.
I'm here.
Mayor Weiss.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Wheatley.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Woods. Is there anyone that I missed? Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Item number 2 is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you please join as Mayor Kenan Weiss leads us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item number 3 is call to the audience. Our next item is the call to the audience. This is the opportunity for the public to comment on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda, informational items or items on the agenda for discussion and not for action. 15 minutes will be provided for the call to the audience unless the chair requests an exception to this limit. And I have not received any requests to speak for the call to the audience. Do we have? And I still have no request to speak. So MAG also provides the opportunity for members of the public to submit written comments via the MAG website. Any comments received 2 hours prior to the meeting have been shared with committee members in advance of consideration and will be included in the formal meeting minutes. And I have one online written comment. Is that all we have for today?
Thank you, Chair. We have received one online written comment for the call to the audience that has been provided to the members in advance of the meeting for consideration.
Very good. Okay, thank you. We will move on to the consent agenda. Approval of consent agenda items 5A through 5F are on the consent agenda. Does any member of the committee have questions or request a presentation on any of these items? And I'm not hearing or seeing any. Prior to the approval of the consent agenda, there is an opportunity for members of the public to comment on any item on the consent agenda. I have no request to speak for the requests or for the consent agenda. Do we have any that I'm missing? We have none. Okay, staff, we have not received any online written comments for the consent agenda, correct? Okay, correct. I'm getting head nods in the correct look way over there. So is there a motion to approve consent agenda items 5A through 5F?
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mayor Ken Weiss
Second.
and a second by Mayor Wheatley. We have a motion and a second. We'll have those participating in the meeting online take part in the voice vote by turning on their cameras and unmuting their audio. We need to see the faces of everyone to participate in the voice vote. Spaces. For those who cannot or do not want to turn on their cameras, staff will conduct a roll call vote. Staff will only call on those virtual camera. Members, please leave your cameras on until after the roll call vote so that staff can count the people's names whose cameras are not on. And I am seeing cameras on, so can I have a voice vote of those in the room and those online? Those in favor say aye,
Aye.
and those opposed say nay. Members, please leave your cameras on. Staff, can you take a roll call of members participating virtually who did not turn on their cameras?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. When I call your name, please indicate how you vote. Councilmember Manfredi,
Aye.
Councilmember Littlefield,
Aye.
Councilmember Stewart.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
Okay, thank you very much. On to items to be heard. 6 is revisions to the arterial life cycle policies and procedures. This item is on the agenda for approval and will be presented by Patrick Stone, Deputy Transportation Director.
Good morning, Chair Osborne, members of the Transportation Policy Committee. A pleasure to be here this morning to present this item for you. Quick recap of my presentation for today. First, I'm going to do a brief overview of the Proposition 400 Arterial Life Cycle Program, then review the policies and procedures, the updates that have been done to date, talk about the working group that is the backbone of these policy updates for the ALCP, and then finally, at a high level, cover the proposed revisions. So Proposition 400 ALCP, funded by the half-cent sales tax, 10.5% of the funding is allocated to the Arterial Life Cycle Program. In addition, some federal funds are allocated to the program. And what I really want to call attention to are the 2 items in the middle. 2 facts we know. The half-cent sales tax expires on December 31st, 2025. And the current ALCP as it's written ends on June 30th, 2026. We do know come June 30th of 2026, we will have projects still in the queue, projects underway. And so this policy update is to help member agencies address those projects. So here is a timeline of the policies and procedure updates to date. There have been 9 revisions to the Arterial Life Cycle Program. Many of them dealing with uncertain times. Quite a few of these were reflections of the Great Recession in the late 2000s. Moving all the way up to last October, this body recommended approval of a change to the policies and procedures to allow member agencies to bring federal funds back into the program. The working group, as I said, it's the backbone of these policy changes. This is where a lot of the heavy lifting is done. Staff at your agencies, they go through, there's considerations of how these updates are done. As noted, they've done numerous policy updates. And for this particular iteration, we did meet 3 times. And in addition, this policy revision was provided to member agencies for comment twice so they could provide those reflections of updates they needed to see. So briefly going through the actual updates to the ALCP, a lot of them are of the space dealing with a post-June 2026 world. First, not allowing project deferrals after June 30th of 2026. What we're really trying to do at this point is lock down the ALCP so that we have a path forward to the end of the ALCP. Hence why the other changes you see specific to schedule changes, any schedule changes post-June 2026 have to be in alignment with ending the program. And then any modification requests, if an agency says we want to modify the scope, it can't delay or defer that project. Also some updates to deal with fund balances, and then how to reallocate project savings both at a programmatic and agency level. Moving on, section 3, which is project details. Again, dealing with a post-2026 world, putting in language to cover reimbursement requests from member agencies in both fiscal years 27 and 28, and identifying what the requirement will be of member agencies for their projects as of June 2026. And what we're really looking at is to have a project fairly well in the hopper. So we're looking at a 60% level of design, any needed environmental clearances complete, and right-of-way acquisition having been started. And then finally, section 4, we made a minor update there just to align with the prior changes in the other sections. And then in addition, we made some minor administrative changes to the document just to clean up the language and make it read better. And with that, Chair, members of TPC, You can see the action on the screen. I'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Patrick. Do any members have questions or comments? Mayor Weiss.
Thank you for the presentation. As this winds down, you're obviously monitoring projects across the region. Do you see any speed bumps that might happen with this, or all the organizations kind of understanding what they're required to do? And because it's that last minute thing that always happens, what do you anticipate?
Thank you, Chair Orsborn, members of TPC, Mayor Weiss. Great question. I think this whole exercise of developing these policy updates, we've been very engaged with agency staff to just that point. Hey, what projects do you still have planned? What do you need from us to help you get those over the finish line? And also talking about the validity of projects. Are the projects you still have the projects you as an agency still intend to deliver? So we've had great conversations, I'd say, over maybe the last 6 months doing just that exercise. So it's worked out very well.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? And I'm not seeing any. Prior to voting, there's an opportunity for members of the public to comment, and I have not received any request for this agenda item. Staff, do we have any online written comments for this agenda item?
Thank you, Chair. We have received no online written comments for this agenda item.
Okay, for this committee, is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Stipp and a second from Mayor Weiss. We'll have those participating in the meeting online take part in the voice vote by turning on their cameras and unmuting their audio. Members, please leave your cameras on until after the roll call vote. I'll give us just a second to make sure we have everybody up that's going to be up. And can I have a voice vote of those in the room and those online? Those in favor say aye.
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 And those opposed say nay. Members, please leave your cameras on. Staff, can you take a roll call of all members participating virtually who did not turn on their cameras?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. When I call your name, please indicate how you vote. Councilmember Littlefield?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Stewart?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you very much. On to item number 7, draft fiscal year 2025 arterial life cycle program. This item is on the agenda for approval and will be presented by Carrie Kassler, Transportation Planner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, members of Transportation Policy Committee. I will be presenting on the draft fiscal year 2025 arterial life cycle program. So just a quick overview of my presentation. I will give an overview of the arterial life cycle program and talk about the revenue forecasts, project updates, and programmed reimbursements. So the Arterial Life Cycle Program, or the ALCP, is the financial management tool for the arterial component of the Regional Transportation Plan. In accordance to the policies and procedures, each year the ALCP is updated based on an updated revenue forecasts, both for the Regional Area Road Fund, or RARF, and federal funds. And projects are updated by their schedules, their costs, and adjustments for the program reimbursements. So here you can see those projected revenues. As you might expect, as we near the end of the ALCP, there isn't much movement in those revenues. There is a very slight increase, so that's good news, but nothing really out of the ordinary here. So for project updates, the workbooks were sent out to member agencies in December of 2023, and the member agencies updated their projects and verified each of them, including the schedules, the costs, any information, and that was used to generate this draft 25 ALCP. Several project change requests were brought through the street committee, and those were also used to make sure that the member agencies get their desired projects done before the end of the ALCP. So with that information, the reimbursements were adjusted to match those work schedules and programming policies. And any remaining 2024 reimbursements are shifted to 2025 after the final payment reports were submitted for the year. And I quickly want to thank the member agencies and their staff for their participation in this effort. It's a joint effort between MAG and the member agencies to get this draft forward and make it as accurate as possible. So just some quick notes before I let you go. As shown previously, the half-cent sales tax collections go through December 31st of 2025. And there's only 1 year left of the Prop 400 tax collections. We will continue to work with member agencies, staff to finalize the remaining projects and get them reimbursed. There will be an opportunity for federal fund advancement in 2025, and we are already working with eligible agencies in preparation for that opportunity next year. And the Prop 400 ALCP policies and procedures have been developed with the ALCP working group to end the Prop 400 ALCP. As I said, we will continue to work with member agencies to monitor the project revenues and the program balances. Mr. Chair, thank you so much for listening. This is the action as requested on the screen, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. Any members have any questions or comments? And I'm seeing none. Prior to voting, there's an opportunity for members of the public to comment. And I've received no requests for this agenda item. Staff, have received any online written comments for this agenda item?
Thank you, Chair. We have received no online written comments for this agenda item.
Okay, is there a motion to approve? Move for approval of Supervisor Sellers and a second. Second, Mayor Wheatley. We'll have those participating in the meeting online take part in the voice vote by turning on their cameras and unmuting their audio. Members, please leave your cameras on until after the roll call vote. And there we go. We got cameras on. Can I have a voice vote of those in the room and those online? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say nay. Members, please leave your cameras on. Staff, can you take a roll call vote of the members participating virtually who did not turn on their camera?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. When I call your name, please indicate how you vote. Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you very much. Item number 8, Southwest Valley Transportation Update. This item is on the agenda for information and discussion will be presented by Quinn Castro, Transportation Engineer.
Can you hear me now?
Now, okay.
Good morning. Thank you. I'll be presenting about the Southwest Valley area shown here, bounded on the north by Olive Avenue, the south, the Gila River, on the west with Hassayampa Road, and to the east with Bullard Road. I-10, State Route 85, and Loop 303 are the primary high-capacity Southwest Valley. They provide critical access for those that live and work in the area while supporting the region's economic activity. Continued growth in cities of Buckeye and Goodyear has led to increased traffic volumes and corresponding congestion, which in turn puts increased demands on these facilities. In response to this growth, Prop 400 funded the construction of a third general purpose lane in each direction on I-10, and included in this was the reconstruction of traffic interchanges at Miller Road and Watson Road. So these are those improvements here at Watson Road. It's now a diverging diamond interchange. Here at Miller Road, something similar. And then here is the widening along I-10 from 85 to Verrado. So looking at population and employment growth in the area, what I mentioned earlier, we're looking at starting in 2010 and moving through to 2050, we're seeing a growth in population of more than 3 times. Similarly with employment, looking at the employment growth that is existing as well as projected through 2050, almost 6 times employment growth in the area. So this is that same data for population growth, but shown in an area map. 1 dot here is equivalent to 15 people. Here we are in 2050, and you see that westward expansion of population in the area. So similarly, what we're looking at here is traffic flows. This is where people live and the number of trips generated from these locations. The darker the color represents the number of trips. These are current in 2023 numbers. If you look at the top left-hand corner, that is what you would expect to see if you are commuting in this area on a regular basis. And then where people work. Again, the darker the orange color here, the greater the number of trips, with that dark orange being greater than 200 trips generated from each of the areas shown there. Again, the top left here is the traffic congestion in the area. So there are a number of projects in development in the area. Of today's focus is going to be the Interstate 10 at Jackrabbit Trail interchange. there is significant traffic congestion on both I-10 and on Jackrabbit Trail. What we're looking at here is 1.2 miles of backup on I-10 mainline and 1.5 miles of backup on Jackrabbit Trail. Notice the close proximity of the McDowell Road. This is unusual in most areas to have such a busy intersection so close to the freeway. ADOT has initiated a design concept report for improvements in the area. So looking at the traffic congestion, not only on I-10 and Jackrabbit, but also the traffic here on the ramps. We're looking at westbound exit ramp. It backs up onto the main line, again, creating additional congestion on I-10 itself. This is currently a stop controlled intersection. So it's really slow moving, getting people in off the main line here. A further challenge to this area is the proximity of the flood control district of Maricopa County Channel, shown here in the bottom third of your screen. You'll see that the guardrail that protects traffic on Jackrabbit is directly adjacent to that channel. So here is the existing lane configuration. One lane in each direction, as well as one lane on and off the freeway here. Again, these are stop controlled intersections. So ADOT is completing a design concept report for this area. It allows for the reconstruction of the I-10 bridge, 3 lanes in each direction on Jackrabbit, traffic signalized at each of those ramp terminals, and additional turn movements onto and off of I-10. The improvements start just south of Van Buren and continue all the way to they start just south of McDowell and head all the way to just north of Van Buren. There's close coordination with the City of Buckeye project at McDowell Road, that they have improvements to update the signal at that intersection as well as widen the roadway. There's a virtual public meeting that ADOT held in January of this year that provides extensive details on it. There was excellent participation from the public. If you're interested in that, I can provide that information to you. So we talked about employment and we talked about population growth. Now we're going to look at daily freight volumes. So again, here, the thicker the line and the darker the color, the greater the number of trips. The dark blue here that you're looking at in the 101, 202 area, greater than 20,000 heavy trucks per day. So this is 2023, our current numbers available. And you see as we move through to 2050, how dark that line becomes and how it heads all the way west off of the map shown here. So to adjust this growth, we're looking at a number of projects that are currently, I just talked about Jackrabbit and the interchange at I-10, but we also have I-10 from State Route 85 to Citrus, which is an HOV lane project that is in design now. Loop 303 from MC 85 to Van Buren, a new freeway facility that is also in final design. And the State Route 30 here, this is right-of-way acquisition that is in advancement for a freeway facility in the future. The funding here is identified in phase 1 of the Regional Strategic Transportation Infrastructure Investment Plan, supported by the continuation of the Maricopa County half-cent sales tax. We also have the initiation of a MAGS-led study on State Route 85 from Broadway Road to Hazen Road. We're working in close coordination with both ADOT and the City of Buckeye. There's close consideration here for the existing highway itself, as well as utilities, canals. There's a railroad in here. We're expecting completion sometime in 2025. And then this slide here, this is a number of the arterial and freeway projects that have been identified in the RSTIP. So specific freeway projects I wanted to mention is the construction of the new freeway on State Route 30, from Loop 202 to Loop 303, the center segment, and construction of interim freeway improvements on State Route 30 between State Route 85 and Loop 303, so that western segment. Some key takeaways from this presentation. The Southwest area has had significant population growth in recent years. This is creating a need for additional transportation infrastructure. I-10 is an important economic link connecting our valley to southern ports or to ports in Southern California, and the freight traffic on I-10 is projected to greatly increase in the future. Recent improvements that have been made help a lot, but additional improvements are needed, and these have been identified in Prop 479 investment plan. A reconstructed interchange on I-10 at Jackrabbit Trail is currently under development. Construction funding has been identified in Prop 479. So this item is on your agenda for information and discussion. I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Quinn. Do any members have any questions or comments? Mayor Weiss.
I think I love what I see and I hate what I see. Right? For the Southwest Valley, it's incredibly exciting. For the entire valley, it's exciting because it means products coming from the East Valley will flow more smoothly to markets in California, in the West, and New Mexico. I hate what I see, especially the black lines that will extend all the way out to West Buckeye. One thing also to take into consideration is that Avondale has added 32,000 acres into their planning area on the south side of the Estrella Mountains. We'll access that area through Litchfield Road, but that traffic's either going to come down SR 30 or I-10. 32,000 acres, adding another approximately probably 50,000 people into the city in the next 15 to 20 years, along with commercial development and everything. So I love what I see here. It only emphasizes the need for Prop 479 to pass. And I'd like to kind of point out too is that the Southwest Valley cities, along with Glendale and Peoria, and all the cities have kind of worked together on this plan for many, many years. So while right now we're kind of we're working toward it, but it's a wait and see for Prop 479. I have all confidence that Prop 479 will pass. And I think this is going to be an incredible next few years for the Southwest Valley on this.
Yep, agreed. Supervisor Sellers.
Yeah, just a comment. You know, I have some concern with the investment changes from the current state budget in infrastructure, that could impact the timing of some of our Prop 479 projects. And, you know, some of the delays in funding are things that those of us on the east side consider very critical. So could be challenging going forward.
Yep, agreed. Mayor Weiss.
So Jack, are you saying that it probably isn't the best idea to allow the state legislature to invest in freeway projects and road projects? I mean, is that what I heard you say?
I said we have challenges.
All right, sounds good. Thanks.
We're going to start bantering back and forth. I just want to say I really, really appreciate staff in bringing forward this regional tour that we're doing, going location by location. We looked at, I think the last one was Mayor Hall's area in 303 and 60, and we've looked at the 24 and issues that we have out there, and then looking at the Southwest Valley area. It just underscores how important a Prop 479 is in the regional transportation half-cent sales tax, the funding mechanism that builds out the infrastructure that alleviates the issues that we're seeing across the entire valley. And I 100% agree. There's concerns all over Metro Phoenix, and we can't shout it loud enough that we need to vote yes on. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say that right here, but we need to vote yes and pass Prop 479 so that in addition to, if the legislature feels gracious enough to fund some of the transportation responsibilities they have, we have a steady revenue source that pays for the transportation that we need in the Metro Phoenix area. And I could go in and talk for hours on the concerns that we have in the Southwest Valley, Jackrabbit Trail. And Ken already told me he's tired of hearing me say Jackrabbit Trail, so I want to make sure I mention Jackrabbit Trail once or twice more in my comments, that we need to improve Jackrabbit Trail. And it's the 20. It has been. It's been I think 40-ish since that was built, and that actually the pictures don't really do it justice. It is. You never know what you're going to get driving through that intersection. It is stop signs at all intersections, the off ramps to the main line, or the off ramps to the Jackrabbit Trail roadway, and it backs up at the obviously at rush hour, but some of the weirdest times, and it's just so inconsistent. It's a difficult corridor to traverse. And then the 85 corridor, we're starting to see some of the growth heading out that way. That's where Core Power is. So you're going to bring 3,000 to 10,000 jobs along the State Route 85 corridor, which I know every other area is seeing the same thing. But it is incredibly important that we further these transportation projects and make sure that we're building what the public is expecting. The issue that we run into when I go out and talk to folks about the growth that we're experiencing in my community is people only associate growth with just transportation issues, traffic issues, and being stuck in traffic. And eventually the public, and we already hear it from some of the public, is going to say no more growth. But we're done growing. And that's also not the option. It's just making sure that we right time build the infrastructure that we need. So appreciate the, I guess bottom line is appreciate the tour of Metro Phoenix and the different projects that you guys are highlighting and the different pinch points that we have throughout the region. Mayor Wires.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with Jackrabbit Trail, but how do you pronounce your middle name?
It's pronounced Kiwi. Kiwi?
Kiwi.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't see any W's in there anywhere, but okay. All right.
But thank you for bringing up Jackrabbit Trail again.
Yeah, I don't think that's in her title,
No,
Jackrabbit
no.
Trail.
And any other comments? Anybody online wishing to speak on State Route 30 or Jackrabbit Trail? I'm hearing none. All right. Thank you, Quinn.
Thank you, Chair.
All right. On to item number 9, an overview of transportation safety in the MAC region. This item is on the agenda for information and discussion and will be presented by John Bullen, Chief Transportation Officer, and Margaret Herrera, Transportation Safety and Operations Program Manager.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the TPC. Just want to sort of kick off this presentation and give you a little bit of context. So over this past year, we've spent a lot of time talking about a number of different transportation topics. These range from some of our study work, project selection, program management, as you've heard today. And while safety has been an underpinning or a component, if you will, of all of these, it's been quite some time since we've had a very specific conversation on safety. So really today we wanted to use this opportunity to initiate that conversation. We don't see it as a one-time conversation. We see this as an ongoing item. But to put it plainly, we have very significant transportation safety challenges in our region. Soon going to turn it over to Margaret, who will be the one to provide a high-level overview of some of those challenges that we have. But I just wanted to emphasize that we see this really as the start of the conversation. And while our conversations aren't going to be easy, there's certainly some challenges. There's certainly some problems we have. We do have a really unique opportunity before us as we prepare for the implementation of our 20-year investment plan. We truly have a unique opportunity to start to change some of these trend lines, start to change some of the trajectories. So with that being said, I'll turn it over to Margaret to go over some of that information before we talk about next steps.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Chair Osborne and members of the Transportation Policy Committee for this opportunity to kick off this first, as John said, in a series of discussions in the very important topic of transportation safety in the MAG region. So a quick overview of my presentation begins with safety planning, and we'll take a look at some safety data and trends, all with the goal of inspiring safety as a priority in the region. So with that, let's get started with planning and funding. Momentum represents the high-level living document and setting the vision for the region. Within Momentum's 6 goals, safety is explicitly identified to provide safety and security for pedestrians, bicyclists, riders, and drivers. The mechanism for funding programs and projects reflecting these goals. The RSTIP serves as the basis for funding through Proposition 479, with a specific set aside for safety. Within the RSTIP investment portfolio, the region has an opportunity to prioritize safety in other programs. So everyone's favorite slide here. can be seen to demonstrate the significant resources that is provided for prioritizing safety. First, highlighting the $200 million set aside noted earlier. But if we focus in on investments for freeway and arterial, as well as those for supporting transit and all other program investments, you see that safety is embedded here within all programming and funding. Within momentum in the RSTIP as the umbrella to all regional planning and funding, the Strategic Transportation Safety Plan accepted by the Regional Council in 2021 was developed concurrently and in close coordination with the development of momentum. This update represented a shift in focus, emphasizing the human impact of crashes translated into our planning efforts. The mission statement reflects the common values as a shared responsibility to ensure our safety and the safety of others in the strategies implemented. Much more can be done to fully realize this mission. Before we move on, I just wanted to note that we will be reviewing data as reported to ADOT for the entire MAG region, and that includes the rural areas. So taking a snapshot of the most recent year available of data, 2022, we found that the MAG region presented with 15 fatalities and 800 injuries per 100,000 people. As a result, the societal cost to all of us in the MAG region was $11 billion. Taking a closer look at one element of what those costs include, we referenced a recent Arizona Republic article that reported that the Phoenix Metro households pay $226 over the national average, which saw an increase of 26% from 2023 to 2024. From here, we'll review a 10-year period of crash data from 2023 to 2022. Taking the pulse of the region's safety performance, we found that on average every year, 530 people died and 38,000 people were injured. This means that every week, 10 people died and 730 people were injured. Put in today's terms, one person dies every 16 hours and one is injured every 15 minutes. That's 4 more injured by the time this meeting is over. Looking at the trends for the 10-year period, we see that total fatalities in the region increased 59% from 2023 to 2022, while the population in the region increased 17% in the corresponding period. For pedestrian fatalities, we see a steady increase with a decrease in 2019 to near 2015 levels. I note that only to emphasize the importance of looking at a 10-year period. 2022 pedestrian fatalities were 110% above the 2013 levels. Similarly, bicyclist fatalities increased 75% over the 10-year period. You may ask how we compare to other regions. FHWA provided this comparison for their update to the Federal Highway Administration focused approach to safety analysis. The result of this effort identified states and regions, which found that out of 398 MPOs, the MAG region was 4th worst in intersection fatalities, 4th worst in pedestrian fatalities, and 10th worst in bicycle fatalities. So now with this review of safety planning and equipped with regional safety friends, John will provide some additional context to the discussion.
Thank you, Margaret. Next slide, please. So as I had mentioned, certainly these are alarming statistics, not where we want to be. The trends aren't where we want to be. But again, I do want to emphasize the opportunity that we have moving forward. Next slide. And really being able to take advantage of that opportunity means prioritizing safety. And so what exactly does that look like? First, we need to understand the issues. We've painted with a very broad brush here. We've talked about safety at a regional level to really understand how we can start to reverse some of those trends or start to adjust some of those trends. we need to dive deeper. We really need to understand what some of the issues are at a specific agency level, a corridor level, a segment level, and not all of these conversations obviously will be comfortable, but we need to understand the data. We need to understand what the problems are. We also need to have conversations about where we want to go. We need to set targets. We need to set goals. A lot of these goals will be centered around what we want to do in terms of investment and safety countermeasures. There's a lot of work that's done in terms of safety engineering, safety planning. Ultimately, it takes commitment, and that commitment will be reflected in terms of what our performance targets are. And then finally, we certainly have an opportunity to change some of the trends looking forward. The regional funding provides us a terrific opportunity to do that, but we're going to need commitment from more than just the regional funding. Really, the priority needs to be throughout member agencies, throughout the staff level, with very intentional and very deliberate actions taken to start to change some of these statistics. Next slide. So what does that look like moving forward? Well, first, as I had mentioned, this is the initiation of the conversation. This is to get you familiar with what our high-level issues are. Certainly, we're in places that we don't want to be in terms of the bottom 10 list, if you will. And so we need to continue these conversations. We need to bring more data to the table. There's one thing that MAG does well. It's an understanding of the data. We also, as I had mentioned, want to establish performance targets. We have a place to do that with some of our planning work that I'll touch on here shortly. And then finally, we have an opportunity to start making that change almost immediately as we work on implementation efforts. Next slide. So we will soon be initiating an update to our regional safety plan. We will be initiating the Transportation Safety Action Plan. We're changing the vocabulary a little bit, in part to align with some of the nationwide efforts, but then also to reflect what we want to do, and that's action, that's movement. So really, this will be the repository for a lot of the discussions that we want to have with you all over the course of the next year, as we get policy direction, as we get commitment. It provides us with a good opportunity to incorporate that into some of our more technical activities. Next slide. And then in terms of the program, we showed this slide a little bit earlier. We highlighted all the different program investments. We've already started to initiate work to prepare for the implementation of Prop 479. Next slide. And we do have two programs that we'll be initiating more quickly than the rest of them, which are the arterial rehabilitation and arterial widening programs. These are the two programs that are funded through federal resources available to the region. This means that we need to start getting projects queued up immediately to be able to go out the door in 26, 27, 28. Next slide. And what this really means is that as we look to prioritize safety, we can utilize these two programs to start to affect that change almost immediately. So we want to continue these conversations as we initiate some of the policy development work associated with these programs. We will certainly identify opportunities to incorporate safety, to build in safety, but it's an opportunity to put our money where our mouth is, so to speak, almost immediately. Next slide. So with that, I will leave you with this quote. I'll turn it over to Margaret, who can help answer any questions, but appreciate the opportunity to initiate the discussion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, John and Margaret. Do any members have questions or comments? Mayor Weiss.
As we compare ourselves to other MPOs going around the nation, you said how many metropolitan planning organizations? Was 380?
It was 398.
So as we compare ourselves to those other organizations, I'm assuming we're going to look to those organizations also maybe for solutions. So how did they address because I'm guessing a large portion of them are ahead of us on this curve, ahead of us in this process. What did they do correctly? How did they reduce fatalities and injuries? And did some of the things that work there, will they work here? You get big cities like New York, Chicago, LA. Do the efforts that work there, do they translate into effective solutions here? We'll have to kind of look at that and see. I look at this, and Councilmember Stipp and I were talking a little bit. This plan was put into place in 2021, this discussion part of it. Was the organization waiting until we had funds to kind of do this? We saw $200 million for safety as part of Prop 479. Was it that, or was it also the cooperation of member agencies who said, yes, this is beginning to be a bigger problem for us than it was before?
Mr. Chairman, members of the TBC, great question. So when we finished our initial planning efforts in 2021, we certainly recognized that it was a challenge, it was a problem. Part of really, as we put together the Prop 479 investment plan, one of the areas that you all acknowledged is that we need some level of flexibility in the future. So part of the challenge that we had in 2021 is that all our Prop 400 funding, all our federal funding had all been locked up, accounted for. We were able to find somewhat of an innovative way to push out $2 million per year, working with our partners at ADOT. That helped, but $2 million a year isn't going to change some of these trajectories and trends. And so I would say that this has been a problem. We want to continue to elevate it from a policy perspective. But again, we're at a once a generational, if you will, opportunity at this point in time, because we have billions of dollars available to us as part of the Prop 479 investment plan. And so as we understand the issues, as we understand the trade-offs, as we understand those items that we need to commit to, we genuinely do have the ability to change some of the trajectories. So we're trying to leverage the timing.
No, and that's what I mean. Yeah, when I'm looking at that, so much of the $400 were siloed, and 479 really gives us the opportunity to look at ways where we can branch out into other areas that we couldn't have with 300 or 4. So thank you, John.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Stipp.
Mr. Chairman, members of the TPC too, Ed reminded me of a good point that I do want to bring up to Mayor Weiss, as you touched on pure agencies and really seeing best practices. At the end of the day, it's a commitment issue, and it's a prioritization issue. We do know what a lot of the solutions are, and it's committing to prioritizing safety, if you will. So in some cases, that's looking at roadway design, and in some cases, it's enforcement of speed limits and speed control. And so we do feel like we really understand a lot of the solutions. We'll certainly look at some of our peer agency activities, but at the end of the day, it will ultimately be a question for policymakers about prioritizing safety and how we want to go about tackling that.
And John, that being said, I think sometimes when you talk about commitment from agencies, cities, towns don't realize they have a problem until they realize they have a problem. In Avondale, we have a speeding problem, unlike not very different than what other cities have. We invested in portable roadside speed cameras. And on a stretch of 1 mile on Avondale Boulevard between Broadway and Lower Buckeye, we have a new development out there called Alamar. Eventually, it'll be 3,700 homes. The first test of those cameras was a warning period. And we had set the cameras at 10 miles an hour over to issue a warning. In the first 30 days of that camera being operated, just one camera, it issued 6,600 warnings, which means 6,600 drivers on that road, and not an incredibly busy road, were going 10 miles an hour over, with one driver going over 110. So
That hasn't been proven.
well, we got a good picture, but it doesn't look like you at all. But it was a wake up call for our police department, because everyone had a guess of what it was going to be. But 6,600 violations would have been issued if they weren't warnings for the first month. That indicates that the city has a large problem there. And how do we mitigate that on a stretch of road that eventually is going to have 6,000 to 7,000 homes? So sometimes agencies don't realize they have a problem until they do.
Councilmember.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The traffic fatality data, was that separated by arterial versus highway or freeway? Was that separated at all, or do you have that data separated?
Thank you, Chair Osborne, members of the committee, Councilmember Stipp. That's a good question. The data that you're seeing excludes freeways. So it's all the MAG region, but that excludes the freeways.
Do we have the freeway data? Because we're
can-
making a significant investment in freeways in both Prop 400 and
Absolutely.
479. So
Yes, we could include the freeways.
do you have it or do you need to go get it?
I would need to go and get
Okay.
it.
All right. So, you know, it's my last, literally my last meeting on TPC. And, you know, it's sometimes frustrating to listen to us talk about commitment and policy and all the rest of that when we are constantly advocating for our own communities rather than the region itself. This problem may be concentrated in one particular part of this region. And depending on which side of the valley or whether it's Central Valley, some or half of us may say, "Oh, I don't want to give up my fair share because it's gonna benefit the other sub-region." We have to get beyond that as a regional council. And I know that that's hard and that's really easy for a council member to sit here and say and not demand. If we're going to take what role we have here seriously, we have to start thinking regionally and stop thinking locally, to kind of the point of we have to make conscious decisions. However, can you go back like 3 slides to the dollar slide?
Sure.
And that black box is going to cover what I want to, oh, that'll work. So when we look at this program investment, safety is called out at $200 million. Emerging technology is $250 million. TDS expansion is $250 million. So we're not even putting our money really where our mouth is when we talk about safety as it goes to the region. Now, I understand that some of these technologies will improve the safety, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, until we start to really dive into, I think we all know because we all drive these roads, you're not going to fix it with technology. You're going to fix it with asphalt and striping and better design I just drove through the 16th Street 51202 Quagmire last night, having sat through the presentation that we did here about 6 months ago. And I won't start moving over to the right until after I get past 16th Street because I know what's happening over there. That's going to take pavement and it's going to take striping in order for us to fix it. That we're not going to fix that with technology. So we really, I think as a committee, and we owe the residents of this county our bigger picture look at what we're doing here. It's frustrating that we just start to have this conversation now. This region has been growing like crazy for, well, at least 20 years, if not probably the 20 before that. So we really owe our residents and we owe the people of this region a better look at that. That's what we owe. The legislature and ADOT and everybody else, they owe that same thing. And unfortunately, we seem to be the only ones who care. And that's shown in this last budget where the monies that were supposed to be spent on transportation projects got swept. And that is very frustrating, both as a resident and as an advocate for the residents of this county. So I hope we start looking at this with a much different lens than we have in the last 20 years. Thanks for letting me go on.
I felt you were on a roll. I didn't want to stop that. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't say when the Germans bombed.
You did not. Supervisor Sellers.
Yeah, I know that at the federal level, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act and other things, a huge amount of the emphasis is on improving safety. And consequently, there are things that are available if you apply for grants based on safety. Are we looking at that?
Yeah, great question, Mr. Chairman, members of the TPC. So Mr. Stone back there will actually be giving a presentation at Regional Council next week on some of our activities with the IIJA. Certainly safety has been a huge national focus, as Margaret had mentioned. Part of the reason we have the statistics that we were able to demonstrate on the screen is because it has been a focus. So the Safe Streets for All program in particular is really far more robust under IIJA than it ever had been in the past. Approximately, I think 8 MAG member agencies have received funding through the SS4A program in some way, shape, or form. We will soon be initiating these larger regional efforts, but leveraging some of the federal infrastructure dollars will certainly be part of our overall strategy for how we can take our money and extend it a little bit further.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Just one more from me, John. Can you go back through, this is just the meeting where we are identifying we have an issue,
Correct.
Clearly. And one more hit on the next steps. I think Councilmember Stipp had mentioned, are there specific areas that we're looking at that are a little bit more difficult than other areas? Just maybe give us again a look ahead at what we're going to be talking about over the next meetings.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, members of the TPC. So really one of the keys will be focus and how we want to focus and where we want to focus. And so as we pick this conversation back up in the fall, data will really be key. We'll be diving into the data in far more detail, far more depth. We'll be introducing some of those elements in terms of what our peer agencies are doing, some of the trade-offs there. So you can expect far more tactical presentations in the future on specific items. We're going to be layering into opportunities to be able to make some real headway. Part of the reason why we really wanted to initiate this conversation now is that so that we could get initial reflections as staff starts to put together those 2 arterial programs that we're going to be working on through the summer and bringing back through this body in the fall. And so that will be a focused presentation, if you will, on how we're going to incorporate better approaches to safety as part of those programs, whether it's requiring a special design phase assessment of roadways that we're proposing for regional funding, or building some of our tools and analytics, much like the Sun Cloud system that we presented on before, that allows not only us as a region, but specific entities to be able to look at where they have issues and what they can be doing. So in short, really what's ahead is far more detail. This is a 100,000 foot level overview. We'll be starting to get into the 50,000 foot level overview and talking about real policy steps that we can take.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could just add maybe to alleviate Councilmember Stipp some of his frustration. When you look at those numbers there in that way, Councilmember Stipp identified it, safety is 200 million, others are more. One thing we're trying to infuse here for us all is that actually safety can actually be part of almost every other one of those things. So for example, when you do an arterial rehabilitation, we know that one of the key solutions to pedestrian safety is better lighting in the nighttime condition. So including better lighting on arterial rehabilitation may not be something that we had thought about before, but it might be something that we want to going forward, is to encourage member agencies to include that in that. So it'll be hard to split out how much of arterial rehabilitation will be a specific safety thing, but we can definitely make it so. There is some technology that does help with safety and coordination, but you are right. It is not exclusively a technology solution. The other thing we know that is probably the most significant thing that we can do for safety is speed enforcement, as Mayor Weiss talked about. At the management committee last week, one of the city managers asked that question about that culture comment. And I just opined, my opinion would be that one of the things that contributes to our ranking as a region is there appears to be a culture of speed here in the region. It's actually nationally, but speed is a real concern. And so that's something that you all individually in your own communities will have to address, because MAG doesn't address public safety. You each individual city you set that. I know I've just recently seen one city in their policing plan where their police department has said that enforcing traffic laws is going to be a priority in the coming couple of years. Those sorts of conversations that you can have as mayors, council members, policymakers will also contribute to what we can do, because it's really speed is the number one factor that we see that contributes to our rankings amongst our peers. But thank you for that.
Yep. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. On to item number 10, which is our good news only legislative update. This item is on the agenda for information and discussion, and John Bolin will present the good news only update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the TPC. Happy to step in for Audra this week, who's taking a well-earned vacation. So there has been a little bit of activity down the street at the legislature. I will start off. There's two items that we've really been tracking. First is a continuation of ADOT that has been up for debate and discussion. So HB 2438 was passed by the legislature and does head to the governor's desk for signature. This bill provides an 8-year continuation of ADOT. In relative terms, it's a fairly clean extension. Only some additional language was added, mostly centered around enforcement at ports of entry. So pleased to report some good news there in terms of ADOT's continuation. And then the other big item that we've been, of course, looking at is the state budget. Latest estimates had a $1.3 billion shortfall. We've been tracking that closely for potential impacts on state appropriations. And after several days of discussion, bipartisan budget was passed by the legislature last Saturday. Still getting our heads wrapped around what that means. But unfortunately, there was impacts to some of the previously appropriated funding, namely a reduction in statewide pavement preservation efforts. As a reminder, pavement preservation is the responsibility of the state. So that has been reduced. Removal of an appropriation for design of the West Pinal Parkway East-West corridor in Pinal County. Reduction in the amount of funding appropriated for 24 extension in Pinal County by roughly 28 million. Removes construction funding to widen I-10, as we had talked about earlier, between Citrus and 85, though there is legislative intent language to restore that in fiscal years 27 and 2028. While we're discussing safety and mobility, another project impacted is removes construction funding for the 347 Riggs Road overpass, critical improvement to help traffic in the Gila River Indian community on the way to the city of Maricopa. There is legislative intent language to restore that in 2028. And to add on a good note, we did see a very modest amount of additional funding appropriated for the US 60 Loop 303 interim improvement project up in the Northwest Valley. Legislature added $167,000 to that project. So
we can move forward. That's good.
Yes, that is correct. Construction is the go for the summer. So we'll continue to assess the changes and report out as more information becomes available. So, Mr. Chairman, that's completes my quick report.
Yeah. Yeah, you didn't do what I had asked, John, but Mayor Weiss.
Mr. Chairman, John, you know, I kid Chairman Sellers about ADOT and about state funding, but I think as we all watch the budget develop over the last month pretty quickly, as it dragged on for months, it really does emphasize the need for a dedicated revenue source for freeway and infrastructure projects and transportation. We can't do this piecemeal. Cities can't rely on a funding mechanism that may get delayed because of budget issues. Cities rely on infrastructure, dedicated infrastructure, a strong strategic plan for infrastructure to manage growth. And when we talk about the SR 24 extension into Pinal, when we talk about the widening of I-10 between Citrus and 85, that being delayed, and maybe we'll get to it in a couple years. The two fastest growing cities in the valley cannot rely on an infrastructure plan that is at the whim of revenue that's split among 5,000 different buckets. So it just reinforces the need to have this dedicated transportation plan. And I know you were disappointed about the SR 24. Eric, you and I talked about I-10 as we were texting, and it's disappointing to see that. And and Skip's on the line. Skip, I commend you for $165,000 for the US 60 303. You got a cactus. That's awesome. So that's my rant. Bill, you and I ranted at the same time today.
Okay. Any other comments? Not seeing any, just one thank you. And when we're talking about these items at the legislature and we have maybe folks that are disconnected and not understanding what is being funded or the need or the, I guess, readiness of a project. Every time we at the city, and I know that other folks have done this too, have called on John Bullen to come and advocate on behalf, we're talking regional projects, but advocate on behalf of a specific project. And in our case, I-10 and that the widening of I-10, John drops everything and runs to the meetings that we are setting up with legislators, ADOT, and other stakeholders. And so for the entire region, but specifically from Buckeye, we want to thank you for everything that you've done in this legislative session. And I know that goes back to Prop 479 and putting that together, and both you and Odd are arguing on behalf of Prop 479, but thank you for being an advocate for transportation across the entire valley. Appreciate you. All right. Item number 11 is request for future agenda items. Are there any requests from the membership for an item on a future agenda? Seeing or hearing none, we'll go on to comments from the committee. Item number 12, are there any comments or announcements from the membership? Mayor Weiss.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to take a moment and thank you for your leadership on this committee over the last year. Even though you are the mayor of Buckeye, you have been an advocate for the entire region, not only here, but at countless meetings and as Prop 479 is moving forward. So I just want to take a moment and thank you for your time on this committee.
Thank you. Councilmember Stipp.
I would also like to thank everybody for one of the few council members that sit here among the mayors, but for allowing me to rant and listen to me, but just for everyone's continued, how much I appreciate the relationships that we've had. And as I finish the last 6 months of my elected life, I do greatly appreciate all of the friendships I've made and the work that we've done as the region. Despite my rant earlier, Maricopa County still is the best that we have here in the state. So thank you. Thank you for everything.
Appreciate that, Councilmember Stipp. Appreciate your rants. So speaking of that, today's Transportation Policy Committee meeting will be the last for several members. Mayor Ken Weiss of Avondale, Mayor Corey Woods of Tempe, Mayor Skip Hall of Surprise, Councilmember Kathy Littlefield of Scottsdale, and Councilmember Bill Stipp, as you mentioned, of Goodyear. We want to thank you all for your service, and we're appreciative of the contributions that you all have made to the region. Thank you very much. I think that's worth a round. And Mayor Weiss, do you have something
No,
else?
I think you touched on it. I think there has been leader, not only with you as the chairman, but I think I've been on TPC for more years than I care to count. But this committee has always worked incredibly well together. It is a key committee to advise the regional council. It is an expert committee. I look around the room and I look at the screen and I can see people who are subject matter experts and who are leaders in the Valley on transportation. And for Avondale, it'll be Councilmember Max White who will be taking over. She sits on the board of RPTA. She has extensive knowledge on transportation and sits on some national committees. I think she will bring a strong voice, not only to the West Side, but to the entire region. So I think she's online right now. I want to welcome her to this committee. And Mayor Wheatley, we look forward to your leadership. I won't be here to see it, but I know you'll do an incredible job.
Awesome. Okay, before Mayor Whitley, we turn it over to you for some comments. Just a couple of things. It's been a privilege to serve as chair of the TPC and work with a dedicated group of elected leaders to advocate for transportation needs in our region. And I'm grateful for your knowledge and passion and proud of what we have achieved. And working together, we have shown a commitment to enhancing the overall transportation experience in our region. And over the past year, construction has started or continued on several freeway projects. In recent months, we've heard presentations detailing the need for transportation investment to maintain our region's high quality of life. Several planning efforts are also underway, which were discussed today, that will help shape the future of the MAG region and enhance safety, traffic operations, travel efficiency, and accessibility. I'm proud of the work we have accomplished and the positive impact we have had on transportation planning. I look forward to working with incoming Chair Mayor Wheatley on the implementation of Prop 479. I think that's real positive. We're talking about the implementation of Prop 479 and new initiatives like the Carbon Reduction Program and Regional Electrification Readiness Strategic Plan. And I wish her all the best in her new role. And thank you again for your support and collaboration, committee. Mayor Wheatley.
Thank you, Mayor Osborne. I really appreciate your leadership in such a pivotal time, excuse me as I turn, but such a pivotal time as we close out Prop 400 and we start the implementation of Prop 479. And when that goes to passage at the ballot this fall, but really appreciate your guidance. And we've been able to accomplish so much and really called a lot of areas to focus for our attention. So I do appreciate that. We have a lot to look forward to in this next coming year. The TPC will approve policies guiding the first two competitive programs, the arterial widening and arterial rehabilitation programs, which are articulated in the Regional Strategic Transportation Infrastructure Investment Plan. Once voter approval of Prop 479 occurs, the TPC will develop the freeway, arterial, and transit life cycle programs in accordance with selected projects. As we heard today, transportation safety will continue to be a priority for the TPC this year. Out of the 398 metropolitan areas, the MAG region came in very high for fatalities. And I'm appreciative of the funding that's allocated in Prop 479 to provide the region with the opportunity to revise and correct these trends that we're seeing moving forward. So I just want to thank the committee for their confidence and allowing me to lead in this upcoming year. I want to express my enthusiasm and excitement to partner with each of you in this capacity. And I appreciate each of you and your dedication, your devotion to improving, enhancing transportation all across the region, recognizing that we all represent our own area, but how vital this is to our region as a whole, and really look forward to the opportunity. So thank you. And with that, I get the honor to present this to Mayor Osborne.
Oh, it's the crystal pyramid.
Built by aliens.
Yeah, thank you very much. Awesome. Thank you very much. Well, upon Regional Council approval next week, we'll welcome Mayor Wheatley as chair of this committee, and I look forward again to your leadership. Up next is adjournment. The next meeting of the Transportation Policy Committee will be on Wednesday, July 17, 2024 at 11:30 a.m. With no further business, today's meeting is adjourned.